This video segment 1C describes the remaining instructional activities that promote mental imagery and also describes a timeline. Another activity that provides some variation in format to Rack Flash is one that we call Rack Bingo. In this activity, each child has a bingo card and a supply of chips. To play the game, the teacher flashes a configuration on her rack. Children cover the number the teacher flashed on their bingo card. The game continues in this fashion until one or more of the children achieve bingo. One feature of this game is that many tasks are posed in a short amount of time, else no one would ever achieve bingo. You can see that this activity is similar to Rack Flash. The primary difference is that there is very little discussion here. Only one person is called on to explain how they figured out each task, whereas in Rack Flash, the teacher will typically call on a variety of students and will involve all students in the discussion by asking children what they understand about an explanation. In other words, the purpose of Rack Flash is to work hard at advancing conceptual development. Rack Bingo is appropriate as an activity only after most students are already adept at figuring out the total flashed. There are some pragmatic considerations when playing this game. First, the teacher has to remember that in a bingo game, the game cards the children have should not all be the same. Some teachers create a variety of bingo cards themselves that they hand out to students. Other teachers we have worked with have children initially create their own bingo cards. One easy way to do so is to devote a part of one lesson to this purpose. Each child has a blank bingo card. For example, it might be a 3x3 grid. The teacher poses a series of Rack Flash tasks. Each child records the number shown on each Rack Flash task anywhere they like on their bingo card. In this way, the bingo cards are individualized. A second pragmatic consideration is this. It is not uncommon for first grade students to accidentally mess up their bingo card during play. They might just accidentally brush some of the chips off of their card. Teachers we have worked with have addressed this issue by using the whiteboard to keep a running list of the numbers flashed. Children can refer back to this list if they need to reassemble the chips on their card. A third pragmatic consideration refers to dealing with the emotions of not winning. A number of teachers we have worked with deal with this issue by simply continuing the game until everyone has achieved bingo. Once children are adept at figuring out the total shown in the Rack Flash task, the teacher can use this variation we described here. In this variation, children are asked to tell how many they saw on the upper deck of the bus, how many they saw on the lower deck of the bus, and the total number of people on the bus. In other words, in this task, children are asked to focus on more details. Remember that this is a flashing task. Children have to use their mental images to think about the two individual quantities and also about the total shown. This variation on Rack Flash can be thought of as a natural extension of the earlier Rack Flash task, one where children are asked to pay attention to more details. The teacher gets the class involved in the discussion by asking what they understand about someone's explanation, calling on students that have different explanations, and so on. Drawing attention to the number of people on the upper deck and the lower deck of the bus, in addition to the total, creates an opportunity for the teacher to initiate a discussion about the sum of two single-digit quantities if she chooses to do so. In this way, the task previews part 2 of the instructional sequence. In addition, by using 10 on one deck of the bus with a single-digit quantity on the other deck, children begin to develop the relationship between a single-digit number and the corresponding team number. In this example, the teacher flashes the configuration shown here using the typical approach of flashing the image up to 3 times. The children's task is to say how many people are on the upper deck of the bus, how many people are on the lower deck of the bus, how many people are on the bus in total, and to explain how they figured it out. The image is left off as the discussion begins. To continue this example, suppose a child, Antonio, says, I saw 13 people on the bus. I saw all of the red beads, that's 10, and then I saw 2 white beads on top and 1 white bead on the bottom. That's 3 more. 10 and 3 more is 13. Here, Antonio explained how he figured out the total, but he did not say how many were on the top and how many on the bottom. The teacher might then say, how many did you see on the top and how many on the bottom? And Antonio might reply with, I saw 7 on the top and I saw 6 on the bottom. At this point, the teacher might want to get the rest of the class involved in the discussion by asking questions such as, what do you understand about what Antonio is saying? Or, who figured it out like Antonio? Or who figured it out a different way? Or the teacher might choose to pursue the conversation with Antonio a bit more first. She might ask Antonio, how did you know there were 7 on the top? And how did you know there were 6 on the bottom? By this time in the sequence, we would anticipate that Antonio might say, I saw all of the red beads and 2 white beads on top. That makes 7. On the bottom, I saw the 5 red beads and 1 white bead. That makes 6. Now the teacher might call on other students to give their explanations of what they saw and how they figured it out. However, this verbal exchange with Antonio gives the teacher the opportunity, if she so chooses, to initiate a discussion as if this task was about the sum of 7 and 6. She might say, Antonio said he saw 7 on the upper deck. He saw the 7 as 5 and 2 more. He saw the 6 on the lower deck. He saw the 6 as 5 and 1 more. The 2 5s make 10. The 2 white beads on the top and the 1 white bead on the bottom make 3. Antonio said that he knows that 10 and 3 make 13. This is a small group version of the variation on rack flash. Children take turns posing tasks to each other. One child creates a configuration on the rack and shows it to the partner. The partner's task is to tell 3 things: the number of people on the upper deck of the bus, the number of people on the lower deck of the bus, the number of people on the bus in total, and also to explain how they figured it out. This activity works well in conjunction with the rack flash variation whole class activity. Teachers often follow a whole class activity by the partner version of that same activity in the lesson. As with the partner task discussed earlier, many teachers will not have a discussion following partner work. Those that do typically call on 1 or 2 children to describe something that happened during partner work. In this video, we have provided an overview of the structuring numbers instructional sequence and described in detail the instructional activities that comprise part 1 of the sequence, becoming efficient with reading the rack. Here we show a general timeline for the entire sequence and a detailed timeline for part 1. As the timeline shows, we recommend devoting approximately 3.5 weeks to part 1 of the sequence and approximately 5.5 weeks to the remaining parts of the sequence. Let's take a look at the detailed timeline for part 1. The first 2 activities of part 1 are introductory activities and hence are used only once, as we have described previously. As the timeline shows, the other activities are used repeatedly over several weeks. The overlap in the timeline indicates that we intend that some of these activities are used together within the same lesson. For example, the third activity, in which students make the configuration on their racks that the teacher specifies and then figure out the total, begins within the first few days and continues through the second week and possibly into the third week. At the same time, the activity called rack flash begins within the second week and continues through the third week. To clarify what we mean, the following is a possible lesson outline the teacher might use in the second week or early in the third week. The first activity of the lesson: how many people are on the bus? Children make the configuration the teacher specifies and figure out the total. The next activity can be the partner version of that. And the third activity of the lesson might be rack flash. The rationale for including several different instructional activities that have differing conceptual demands within the same lesson is that by doing so, the teacher ensures that the more conceptually sophisticated students within the class continue to have learning opportunities at their level. At the same time, other students within the class continue to progress in their own conceptual development because students always participate in ways that are personally meaningful to them. We want to be clear that we are not misunderstood on this point. Every student participates in every activity within a lesson, but each student should have a personally meaningful way to do so. In some cases, this may mean that some of the less conceptually advanced students will have a rack to use during an activity, such as Rack Flash, while the majority of the students do not have a rack to use. There are two fundamental principles that undergird our approach to instruction, and they are these. First, every student should have a personally meaningful way to participate in every activity. And second, every child should have the opportunity to advance in his or her learning in every lesson. Planning for several different activities within the same lesson makes it possible for both of these principles to be met at the same time. As you can see from this description and this lesson example, there is a gradual progression through the instructional activities that make up part 1 of the sequence. New activities are added to the lessons, while prior activities continue and gradually drop out when the majority of students are no longer learning anything new from them. Finally, we reiterate what we have said repeatedly when giving the detailed discussion of the activities. The activities in this sequence are designed to promote conceptual development, such as 5 as a composite unit, 5 referenced, 10 referenced, and double referenced concepts of numbers to 20, the relationship between 10 and the team numbers. The goal is not that students learn to do the activities. Teachers have to make judicious decisions about how and when to move forward and when to step back and devote more time to something. The most important thing the teacher has to attend to is how her students are participating and what that indicates about how they are reasoning. In the second video group, we discuss part 2 of the sequence, becoming efficient with adding and subtracting using grouping strategies prompted by the RAG.